Thank you, sir. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with an abiding sense of honor that I invite Vice Admiral Tarun Sobati, Deputy Chief of Naval Staff of the Indian Navy, to deliver the closing address. Over to you, sir.
Your Excellency, Mr. Vincenzo De Luca, Ambassador of Italy to India and Nepal, Admiral Karambir Singh, Chairman, National Maritime Foundation, Vice Admiral Pradeep Chauhan, Director General, NMF, senior officers, distinguished panelists, delegates, participants, ladies and gentlemen. The Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue, the 2023 edition, has over the past 3 days been a very interesting and informative journey. It has brought together eminent panelists and scholars, including 23 panelists from 15 countries, to cover a wide range of topics under the dialogue's theme for this year. About 45 speakers took the podium to enlighten us, provoke our thoughts, and provide us with threads for further discussion. The lively audience interaction in each of the sessions was indicative of the high value of the dialogue. These 3 days have left the audience of participants, naval officers, sailors, and students enriched and better informed. The IPRD, as it is called for short, is an annual top-level international conference which reviews the current geopolitics in the Indo-Pacific region and identifies opportunities, dangers, and problems that might be present. It aims to inform policy formulation not just in India, but also in partner countries of the Indo-Pacific. In a departure from the previous 2 editions, which focused on maritime strategy and maritime security, this year's edition has focused on maritime connectivity. The National Maritime Foundation has been the flag bearer and knowledge partner of the Indian Navy and has done most of the heavy lifting in organizing the IPRD, ably supported by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation for this year's edition. Having been given the privilege of delivering the closing address, let me try and recap some of the important takeaways from this year's conference. In the session on modes of maritime connectivity, we first heard about the Northern Sea Route, which has been a relatively recent development, but comes with its own challenges in viability, dependence on icebreakers, economy of scale, and availability of multimodal transport at ports. It also brings with it environmental issues and the creation of security friction within the so far peaceful Arctic seas. We also heard about the effects and effectiveness of the BRI project and the high level of corruption it has brought in. Ambassador Pankaj Saran talked about how geopolitical factors can affect the performance of ports such as Bandar Abbas and Chabar, notwithstanding their inherent usefulness. His Excellency, the Ambassador, just referred to the effect that the India, Middle East, Europe corridor and how it would be affected by the Israel-Hamas conflict, but also the potential of this corridor being a source of the solution. Flowing from this, Professor Hideshi Tokuchi stressed upon the importance of initiatives such as Quad and Japan's initiatives in Indo-Pacific to provide alternate avenues for building infrastructure. The role of China in aiding development of connectivity was talked about in the context of Nepal and East Africa. Undoubtedly, China has helped develop infrastructure in many countries. But as was brought out by Professor Pramod Jaiswal, quoting the case of Nepal, this is extended to interference in political affairs, resulting in an atmosphere of distrust, pushback, and rethink. Such has been particularly the case of Philippines, which has moved away from a strategy of appeasement to balancing to a distinct anti-Chinese stance, as was stated by Dr. Renato de Castro. Commodore Shantanu Jha delivered a very interesting talk on flags of convenience versus national ownership and the lack of effective international laws to counter this threat to maritime security. While talking on the theme of maritime connectivity through shipping and trade, Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan informed us how Indian major ports are moving to becoming competitive in their charges through a market-determined port tariff. And while drawing lessons from the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Dr. Adrian Hack brought out the possibility of drones with no-flag countries creating havoc in narrows or choke points such as the Straits of Hormuz and the Straits of Bab el-Mandeb. This new induction of technology has indeed posed a threat to maritime security, and we are all grappling with how to protect ourselves from this new emerging technology. He also brought out how targeting of Ukrainian agricultural exports is affecting the global supply chains and affecting non-involved populations, especially the global south. And this is what localized conflicts can do in the wider global sense, even as we try and protect ourselves within the region of Indo-Pacific. We can feel the effects of something as distant to us as the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Admiral Jayanta Pereira interestingly recalled a decades-old concept of Indian Ocean as a zone of peace. It was something that we heard about when we were teenagers and growing up in the 80s, young officers in the Indian Navy. But this concept was countered by Vice Admiral Ashok Kumar by stating that the presence of multiple countries in the IOR is because they all have stakes which they feel a need to protect. So it nonetheless makes one think, is the extended presence of extra-regional forces in IOR contributing to improving maritime security, or is it deteriorating the maritime security of the region? And since maritime security is such a concern, Mr. Mahadevan Shankar pointed out how it may be possible to de-risk dependence on SLOCs through South China Sea by diversifying sources of goods, suggesting that the Australia-Oceania region could be an alternate source of LNG for India. He also highlighted that supply chains of rare earth elements and rare metals could be immune from maritime threats because they could be transported by air, given the relatively small quantities. While dwelling on the theme, private industry in the safety and security of Indo-Pacific maritime trade and shipping, Admiral Lamba brought out with facts and figures that the reducing share of Indian-flagged vessels carrying Indian trade. Mr. Anil Devli, on the other hand, highlighted the challenges by pointing out that the Government of India policies make the import option much easier rather than depending on the domestic shipbuilding industry, which is aggravated by inconsistency in policies. And therefore, at least in the case of India, if maritime security has to be ensured through a robust domestic shipbuilding industry, there are areas which the Government of India needs to look into so that this strategic sector can be promoted to ensure that our maritime trade is carried more and more in Indian-flagged hulls. An interesting recent development has been the entry of private players in space-based surveillance, a field traditionally the sole domain of state actors. Mr. Anil Prakash stated that this has given a fillip to innovation and reduction in costs. However, he also pointed out that a reduction of government controls has simultaneously raised security concerns, and not just security, but also issues related to privacy of data. Dr. Francis Prairan spoke to us about offshore gas fields in and around the Mozambique Channel and how this would impact maritime security and the frisson between competing countries attempting to benefit from this new this new source of natural gas, and also the potential for development of Mozambique and Tanzania. The final professional session brought out the focus on core maritime security issues under the title, Maintaining a Rules-Based, Safe and Secure Indo-Pacific. Vice Admiral Das Gupta, in his opening remarks, brought out a significant aspect. When we talk of a rules-based order, it is important to understand who makes the rules. With the rise and fall of powers in international geopolitics, there would be an inevitable redrawing of rules. While talking about maritime domain awareness, Mr. Jeffrey Payne highlighted that we have moved from an era of scarce data to deluge of data. MDA is also increasingly becoming crowded with interested parties. He posed two important questions. Should there be a central hub for all this data? And should there be a single global convener to handle all this data? No easy answers to that. And if the answers, or rather if the answer was to be in the affirmative, there are no easy solutions to make that work. Dr. Nguyen Lan Anh had a refreshing perspective while talking about disruptions of maritime rules-based order. She observed the dichotomy of China's approach between statements made in the BRI summit and the recent laws promulgated by that state. She recalled that it is important to not just hear what China says, but also to see what China does. It was suggested that to counter some of the disruptions, it is not sufficient to have maritime domain awareness, but we need to have cross-domain awareness. This is a term that I heard for the first time, and this is something that I will carry back with me. Through the course of the IPRD, it was highlighted that as we move forward, we would have to deal with additional evolving threats. These include cyber attacks on port operations, recent event in Australia being an example, as well as threats to undersea communications and undersea oil and gas pipelines. Rear Admiral Bapna brought out that there is therefore an urgent need to have underwater domain awareness. Whether it is a function of the traditional maritime domain awareness that we have thought about, which is primarily on the surface, or as Admiral Pradeep Chauhan mentioned, underwater domain awareness is actually a component of maritime domain awareness. But I would state here that recent efforts by most of us, most countries, I would say, have focused on the surface of the water, and under the water is an area that we are only now getting into. Rear Admiral Bapna stated that this underwater domain awareness can only be achieved by capitalizing on individual strengths in acoustic detection capability and the use of AI and ML, and to create protected undersea zones. He very effectively brought out the progress and the capacities that various countries have recently developed. The final speaker of the last session on the last day, Ms. Jane Chan, brought out that the fundamental understanding of universal acceptance of UNCLOS no longer holds. The consensus that existed may not necessarily continue, and all states do not consider that the UNCLOS is effective. She stated that the effectiveness of UNCLOS in international laws is under debate, but if we seek to make amendments, we may not achieve consensus, because consensus on UNCLOS has been built up over many, many, many years of hard work. Lack of trust is contributing to the ineffectiveness of institutions, and these are particular challenges. I would finally like to end this summary of the proceedings by closing my closing address by thanking the panelists and participants for being part of the dialogue. I hope you carry back with you new thoughts that will better inform policy making in your domains. As always, the National Maritime Foundation has done an outstanding job of organizing the IPRD, and I would like to express the gratefulness of the Indian Navy for their effort. Thank you, Chairman, thank you, DG, and thank you, Team NMF.